911 was the address of the emergency.
Are you having problems with the neighbor's children?
911 was the address of the emergency.
Several kids out there right now are screaming and yelling.
911, what is the address of the emergency?
My neighbor has been screaming outside.
I'm like the perfect neighbor.
Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I'm so glad you found me. Welcome back if you're not new here. Thank you for joining me every single upload, even though this is what you get every single time. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. You mean the world to me. And yeah, that's pretty much it, which is a lot. My love for you. We have a lot to talk about today. Oh my gosh. I can't promise that I'm not going to just like burst into tears again. If you know, you know. If you saw it, you saw it. Today we're talking about the case that was featured on the newest Netflix documentary, The Perfect Neighbor. I honestly can't remember a time that I was so emotional, like sobbing during a documentary. Maybe Dear Zachary, but heavy, heavy, heavy. I highly recommend watching it. If you haven't and you were kind of wanting to like watch that first, do that because we will be talking about the case. So, you know, spoilers and stuff like that will be in this video. One thing I'll say is I've been trying to think and like even look because I loved the way that it was presented. It was done so well. I don't think I've seen a documentary that was basically all body cam or ring camera footage. So you're like brought along with everything that is going on, and doing it that way was so impactful and powerful, but at the same time gut-wrenching. And I think that like those words all together sound very weird, but when you're watching something like a true crime documentary, that is so important because it is what reminds you what we're watching is real life and being taken through everything. It's like, I mean, how real can you get? The only limitation of that style was that I didn't get to learn about a lot of the people, like the background of everyone in their lives. So I did want to find out as much as I could, which I have, and that's also what I want to share with you. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do though, I do have one quick message for you. I want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor today, Fume. You already know. I am a big fan of Fume, not only for their continued support on my channel, the success I have found with their device, but also for their mission too. If you've never heard of Fume, it is an award-winning flavored air device. This is not a vape. There is no vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, no charging. It is literally just natural flavor that goes to your mouth, not your lungs. And if you've been here for a hot minute, you also know that I love that it moonlights as this emotional support fidget friend. You can twist it, click it, and then it also satisfies that hand-to-mouth motion without the chemicals. I love the weight of this too. I feel like the extra weight also just does a little something. If you've ever tried stopping a bad habit cold turkey, you already know how hard that is, not only just emotionally, but also on your brain. So Fume works to replace that hand-to-mouth fixation, calms the nervous tension through the fidgeting, and then distracts you from your bad habit with the, flavor core, like getting a little satisfaction, if you will. They are also all about doing things the right way. They continuously invest in third-party studies to make sure that their products are safe and are backed by doctors in the US. So it's not just trendy. It's trusted. If you or someone you know is trying to let go of certain habits, I highly, highly recommend Fume. And right now you can try it by going to www.tryfume.com/SherrilynDale. That's try, T-R-Y, Fume, FUM.com/SherrilynDale, or scan the QR code and use my code SherrilynDale to get a free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today. Once again, that's tryfum.com/SherrilynDale, or scan the QR code and use my code SherrilynDale to get a free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today. You are welcome in advance, and thank you so much to Fume for sponsoring today's video. All right, so let's go through the case for everybody who's not familiar with it. If you're not gonna, head over to the documentary right now, but just wanted to know it all, and even just a refresher for everybody that has, okay? To fully grasp how infuriating this whole situation is, you have to understand how long there had been issues in, I believe it was the Quail Run. I'll confirm on the screen here if I'm right or if there's an adjustment. Neighborhood. And this was like a feud that had basically been between all of the residents and then their one neighbor, this woman named Susan Lawrence. Also, I have an issue with the way that she spells her last name for how it's pronounced, but I guess not her fault, but a lot of other things are her fault. The best way to describe Susan is how the kids in the neighborhood did. They called her the Karen, and there's a reason why. Sorry to all the amazing Karens out there also just get a bad rep because of that. And honestly, sorry for all of the like, can I call your manager Karens who are also now getting dragged into this because this is beyond Karen, being a Karen, okay? This woman is nothing but pure and utter evil with nothing but hate and venom in her veins. Yeah, Susan. Her biggest gripe in the world were kids, okay? Primarily Black children that were in this neighborhood who played football, soccer, and made noise by laughing and engaging with each other in the neighborhood, primarily in this field that just happened to be adjacent to her house, okay? It's very important to know that Susan is a white woman in her late 50s who lived alone in a duplex in the Quail Run neighborhood. And she had a long history of complaining about these children in the area. Literally, her biggest issue was children playing, like hearing the sounds. Like, I'm just like, I miss that about like lake season being over right now and hearing the kids just, you know, like that little, not like, you know, terrible screams, but like the screams and the laughs. And anyways, I just don't get it. Now, records show that I believe she lived there in this complex since at least 2020. And then beginning in early 2021, she frequently, like I wouldn't be surprised if she had Marion County Sheriff's Office on her speed dial because she was calling them all the time to report that the kids were disturbing her. Specifically, she would try to say that they were trespassing on this grassy lot that was, like I said, just kind of like adjacent to her home. So to get a visual, the neighborhood is like a cluster of kind of like single story duplexes, quadplex homes. And I think she was in one of the quadplexes. So when you stepped out of her like patio area, there was this big field that the kids would go and play in. And she would constantly scream at them to get off of her property and ultimately would take it so far as to calling the sheriff's office. In reality, this field was not Susan's private yard by any means. It was owned by another of the residents in the neighborhood who allowed all of the neighborhood children to use it as this common play area because, like, yeah, he got it. It was like, these kids are having fun, go for it. At one point, I'm sure just to like appease her and shut her up, her landlord did put up some like no trespassing signs on her, I guess it would be property line. So this field was like big. Her little patio like looked out and then it would just be like this little spot of grass kind of just outside of that patio. So appeased her, put the no trespassing sign up. There was still a lot of the area, you know, like still a lot of field for the kids to play in and that they were allowed to use, but everyone would soon learn that's not enough for Susan. No. Her little trespassing signs, I don't know, didn't drown out the noise of children just loving life and playing. Over roughly 2.5 years, from January 2021 onward, Susan made over a dozen calls to the police to report the children playing in the neighborhood. Each and every time she called, she complained of the noise, trespassing, and the responding deputies consistently found that all of these kids were just playing. They were in this public area playing football. There's even footage of them saying like, I love that you guys aren't on, you know, like on TikTok, like sitting on your iPads, like you're out here and you're doing things and you're having fun. They're not on her property. They're not damaging anything. Like, and they would leave just knowing like, I think they've even like said there was a couple clips that was picked up on the documentary where they were like, what a nutcase, you know, like she's just irrationally angry about normal kid behavior. Not even normal kid, because literally like nowadays it takes so much effort to like just have kids, you know, like go back in the day and be and play as kids. How she was never charged with harassment is beyond me, because anytime the kids were outside playing, she not only would call the sheriff's office, but she would yell horrible things to them. She would taunt them. She called them jackasses, bastards, gave them, you know, the middle finger while she was recording them, repeatedly used racial slurs to these children. And hearing some of the quotes that she made, like, it makes my blood boil still. I apologize sincerely, but I think to understand the gravity of the situation, you need to know like how disgusting she is and the things that she said to the children. So for example, she told them things like, get away from my house, you black slaves. This is not the underground railroad. She even admitted to detectives that she flat out used the N-word towards these children and said it might have been out of anger and just slipped out. She actually described growing up and being told that that word was, what they used to describe like unruly and bad. And that's just disgusting. Like, it's 2025. Okay? There's no more, no, Susan, F off. She would also do things to, try to back up her claims that like the kids were taunting her by doing things like setting off her car alarm herself and then like calling the police and saying that it was like the kids that did it. Again, there's another clip in the documentary where she accuses one of the kids of like trying to put like a dog in the back bed of her truck or something like that. And when they come to the scene and they're like interviewing other neighbors, they're like, what is she talking? They couldn't lift up the dog that she's talking about, first of all. And no, she's the one setting off the alarm herself. Crazy, miserable Susan. By February 2022, the issues had escalated to a point where Susan then started calling and alleging that there were physical altercations. Specifically, one of the calls that she placed to 911, she reported that one of the mothers of the children, Ajike Owens, pulled one of the no trespassing signs from the ground and threw it at her, which Susan said hit her in the leg and left a mark. When the police arrived, they did not see any mark on her leg. And when they talked to the neighbors and got Ajike's, she's known as AJ, so I'll also refer to her as AJ. When they got her side of the story, they determined, that never happened. What actually happened was AJ walked over to basically tell Susan, like, back off, and that the kids had permission to play in that grassy area. They were not crossing any boundaries, and like pretty much they're staying away from your like stupid little signs like that are here or whatever. So they exchanged words, and AJ did exactly what I would have done in this situation. She pulled out this flimsy little sign, think like lawn campaign signs, and threw it to the ground. Like, here's what I think of your sign, and walked away. And then she calls the police and it like claims that she like chucked this at her and like injured her leg. Now, defending her children and the other children in the neighborhood came as no surprise to anybody who knew AJ. AJ is described as a vibrant mother, daughter, sister, and friend whose life revolved around caring for others, especially her 4 children, her sons Isaac, Titus, Israel, and then her daughter Africa, who were ages 3 through 12 in June 2023. She is that person whose smile lit up a room and somebody whose life was organized around all of her kids' activities. AJ's best friend, who was also godmother to her children, said, quote, "To know her is to love her. AJ adored her children. She lived and breathed for them day in and day out. She made sacrifices as a single mom to be there for them. They were her world. They were her everything." She also served as like the dedicated team mom for her children's youth football and cheerleading team, so she never missed a game or practice, and the kids just, all of them looked at her as like the team mom that was going to be there. In fact, there's really not anything that she wouldn't do for those that she cared about in general. She was the first to open her heart and door to even other single mothers that were in need, and she was very protective over those that she cared about. Her younger brother Otis said even as a teen, she made sure like he was taken care of, he was fed, and stuck up for him by anybody who disrespected him, and taught him too, like, you do not allow yourself to be disrespected. And he said, like, even at a young age, he just knew those qualities were going to make her a great mother. Now, despite police constantly responding to Susan's calls and pretty much saying, like, these kids are being kids, never pressing charges or taking her side, she had no shame. She continued to call, and with each call, she tried to portray herself more and more as a victim and saying things like, "I'm feeling threatened by the presence of these children near my home." Keep in mind, these kids are like 7 to 12 years old, and she's saying she's in fear of her life. It's beyond ridiculous. It's beyond an eye roll, which is pretty much how everybody viewed this situation. As AJ's mom, Pamela, later put it, she said, "This woman was wreaking havoc in the neighborhood, but it never registered to any of us how bad it was until the worst happened." On June 2nd, 2023, a culmination of this 2.5-year feud with neighbors tragically reached its breaking point. Like dozens of times before, Susan had issues with the kids playing in the same open field near her house. And according to AJ's oldest son, Isaac, he said he had been playing basketball in the street while his 10-year-old brother Israel was playing in that grassy area. And at approximately between 7 and 8 p.m., Susan went outside and started yelling at the kids, again, being aggressive, using racist language. And the kids decided to just pack it in. And Isaac's younger brother Israel said that he had left his tablet on the ground and needed to go back and get it. When he went back, Susan was outside videoing the kids on her cell phone while giving them the middle finger, again, using racial slurs, and picked it up. When Isaac goes back and is approaching Susan, who's out there, she's also got this big, long, massive umbrella. And there's roller skates that are in that grassy area, outside of her property. And she picks them up and throws them at this little boy while she's also swinging the umbrella at him. So Isaac tells Israel, go back, get mom. That is also something that the kids were pretty much told every single time that the sheriff's department would respond was, you guys are kids, you're fine, keep doing your thing. Do your best not to engage with her. If you need something, if you need help, go and get your parents and let them know. And so that's what they did. While Susan's going back inside, allegedly, she said something like, yeah, go get your mom. At 8:54 p.m., she called 911 to report that kids were trespassing on her property and that one threatened to beat her up. She said on the call, there are several kids out there right now. I'm fearing for my life. I'm very scared.
I don't like the kids threatening me that they're going to beat me up, that they're going to get someone else to kill me. And this is just ridiculous.
Again, I have to remind you, these kids are between 7 and 10 years old. Meanwhile, AJ and Israel are walking over to Susan's house. And AJ was heard by the neighbors telling Susan, come out, throw something at me. What the is going on here? Within basically 1 minute of that first call, while the deputies are en route now from Susan's first call, several 911 calls come through from the neighborhood reporting a shooting.
The old lady that always calls the cops over here.
What's going on?
I don't know what's going on. We just heard a gunshot, and we think his mom's laying in the grass, but nobody wants to go over there. We ain't trying to get shot.
And then a second call from Susan comes in saying a woman was yelling at her, trying to break down her door, and she fired a shot through her door.
Oh my God, this lady just tried to break down my door. I shot through the door. Oh my God, okay. They were going to come and kill me.
It was AJ that was shot. And one of the calls that came through was actually from her son. This baby saw his mom get shot in the upper chest, staggered away from the door, and collapsed on that grass area that this woman had so many issues with, and told her son, call 911, with her cell phone. For obvious reasons, the part of the documentary where officers arrive on the scene and you just see neighbors absolutely frantic, and AJ's sons in real time on body cam and ring camera telling everybody their mom was shot, go get help, is one of the hardest, most heartbreaking things I have ever seen. Oh my God. I stopped. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. You see it all unfold. You realize that AJ is being taken away in the ambulance. You hear the kids talking to the other, their friends in the neighborhood, feeling responsible. Their father arrives on scene, and then the literal call from the deputies that went to the hospital. That call comes in to say that AJ Owens did not make it. The father of her children is told, breaks down, and then decides, on camera, on this footage, he wants to be the one to tell his children, which he does. You see, it absolutely breaks you. Like I said, though, I cannot tell you how important and impactful that was, as hard as it was to watch, as much as, I'm sitting there and I know so many people just from seeing reactions online, that moment is to take in. But that's what shows how real it is. These are not just stories. That is what tragedy looks like. This way of presenting this case also allows you to feel the anger that AJ's family and friends felt when this woman, Susan, that's who I'm talking about, monster, was not immediately arrested. Yeah, for a hot minute there, Susan was really banking on the fact that she was going to get away with killing a mother by claiming that she was in fear for her life and thought that this would qualify for the stand your ground law.
Turn around. Where's your gun at?
You got hands? You got hands?
You're going to be detained for
Is there anybody else in the house?
There's somebody else in the house. Can I just get my
No,
daughter?
no, not right now.
All right.
You're not under arrest. You're being detained.
Okay, I understand.
Pretty much like the in a nutshell, the stand your ground law, which was, I believe it's still, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, in Florida. They might look at a different from this case, but would be like if you are feeling like in a direct threat, you would have to be able to prove and like qualify all of these things. So like, were you touched? Was there like an actual like break-in, not just like an attempt, but anyways, that if you killed somebody like who was like entering your house or who had entered your house and you truly believed that it was like your life or theirs, that you wouldn't be charged. And this was the narrative that she was trying to run with. Pretty much as soon as the deputies arrived on scene, they did detain Susan. She was in the back of the patrol car. She is interviewed and she says that she became very fearful when one of AJ's children allegedly threatened her life before AJ got there. So she's trying to lay up that, you know, she had called 911 because it started with these kids. You know, that she was already, her life was threatened by like this 8-year-old kids. She goes in and says, you know, like there was these 3 boys. They were very close to my sidewalk. They had their skates around and stuff. And she says that she fell on one of the skates and just said like, you guys pick up these skates. And they said no. She describes this actually also in one of the 911 calls. And the way like you hear herself try to like reenact that interaction, like makes it sound like she's so calm and composed, is literally insane. You know, it's like, oh, I fell and it was like, guys, you know, pick your skates up. Kind of like, you know, a frustrated mom, like, come on, Matt, that's no. Because there's also a clip in the documentary of a different night that the officers were dispatched where they're knocking on her door and then on her window because she's not answering, but she had called and she screams so friggin' loud at them, like through the glass door. Like the officer was just like, geez. And she realizes like when she pokes her head through the blinds that it's the police and she's like, oh, you know, like I'm sleeping, like trying to compose herself. Like that's who Susan is. If I can insert a clip, I will. If not, like you absolutely have to go and see it because that is who the kids and the neighbors dealt with all the time. Not this frightened, frail, threatened old woman. No, that is who they dealt with. Like I said, though, that's what she tried to roll with. She said that when she asked them to pick up the skates, one of the kids said no and then said, I'm going to kill you. And if I can't kill you, I'm going to find somebody else to kill you. And to me, it sounds like, did they say that, Susan, or did you? Yeah, it's very important to know that no witness has ever corroborated that any child had ever made death threats toward this woman ever. So especially not that evening. By all accounts, it was always Susan who was the aggressor, especially that night. It was Susan who picked up the skates and threw them. It was Susan who swung a friggin' umbrella at these children. And it was Susan who shot a defenseless mother behind a locked metal door. This was a solid metal door and it did have a peephole. So even though the peephole is there, which, you know, she could have seen like AJ didn't have any weapons on her, she said she could hear AJ yelling at her through the door, but then admitted like she couldn't see outside. So she didn't, you know, like actually know like what kind of threat AJ posed. Also in that, she also didn't know who was with AJ at the time or like that it even really was AJ if what she's saying is true, right? Like, so what if it was, you know, like what if she was coming up and it was one of the sons who, by the way, like her son was standing beside her at that point. It literally could have been either of them that were shot because she shot through this door, closed, locked door. And investigators later confirmed there was no sign of attempted forced entry to that door. So no splintering, like, you know, like on the side of her, like trying to break it down, no cracking, no damage that they would see if somebody was truly trying to break in somebody's property and threaten the life on the other side. And just to clarify, like AJ did not bring any weapons. Like I said, you know, she could have looked through to see if she had one. She didn't. There was no weapons. Was she angry? Sure. What mother wouldn't be? I would have dealt with the situation the exact same for my children. Of course, I would have gone up to this woman's house and been like, what in the world are you doing? Yeah, why are you throwing something at my kid? Throw it at me. That does not mean that we are going, just you know, by defending your children, does not mean that I'm going there with the intention to kill you and bringing weapons, because she didn't. She just went there to verbally deal with it. Also, every witness that heard, you know, the back and forth that was going on that night said that they never heard AJ threaten Susan's life. It was just like, again, open the door. and throw the roller skates at me. Even Susan's own words gave her away. When she called the dispatch to call about the shooting, she says on there, "The woman was screaming and yelling at me. I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my gun and shot at the door because I thought she was going to kill me." And that is so important. I thought. But says she's screaming and yelling. So I went and got my gun because I thought. She didn't say she was going to kill me. Not like she's busting my door down like it's on its like last hinge here, like hurry up, I need you. No, she was yelling and I thought she was going to kill me. She did later try to change that story and say that AJ did use the words, "I'm going to kill you." But when you hear her like talking to the investigators, it's like you can see like she doesn't even believe it. It's like you could probably see like the wheels spinning of being like, oh, this was not well thought out. Like I thought, oh, like she's yelling, like people are just being like, okay, and more, you know. I also think it's really important to know that Susan never gave a verbal warning to AJ through this closed, locked metal door. Like, I have a gun. If you do not stop, I'm going to shoot. Which also would not get, absolve her of responsibility at all. Like, I've not threatened your life at all. But, at least it'd be something to be like, okay, this woman is bat crazy. I'm going to back off. Something else that's really interesting is every time Susan talks, she tells on herself. It's like, though, you can't get her to shut up. But in the same sense, you're just like, okay, well, this is useful, I guess, because she just ends up talking in circles and then telling on herself. So we've got like the 911 call and then her trying to like backtrack and always going like, oh, she's going to kill me, right? During one of the interviews, the phrase that she used was, next thing I know, like I'm in fear of my life because of the kids. And then I've got this knocking on the door and I hear her yelling and I thought to myself, oh my God, she's really going to kill me this time. So she used the phrase this time, which obviously leads to more questioning. And, the investigators being like, oh, okay, so like what else was done? And she then admits that, there's been interactions, altercations over the years. And they're like, okay, and so she's threatened your life before? She's like, no, she never threatened my life before. So like, what is it? It's like she almost just thought like her just spewing out like people are just going to take it at face value, being like, oh, like she's going to kill me this time. And they then be like, oh, okay, yeah, so yeah, she must have done this again. No, like they're going to follow up, Susan. And then especially even with like the evidence of itself from that evening. What was she thinking? Thinking that somebody yelling at you is going to shoot or like warrant like shooting through a door when the evidence is not going to back that up. Like I said, like she's saying at one point, she again changed her story trying to say like that AJ was trying as hard as she could to enter Susan's home, but then also admitted at no point did AJ even rattle the door handle to just like see if it was unlocked to enter. She never made an attempt to enter this woman's property. I like doing this sometimes. I don't know why, but let's play devil's advocate for a second here. And let's say she did. Let's say, AJ rattled the door, tried to get in. Susan also discredits herself when she tells detectives that she had installed an extra long deadbolt lock in the door because, again, remember, she's going through this narrative that she's, like scared. And then that also had a security chain on it. So if for whatever reason, AJ was able to force her way, there were so many added layers of security here, right? It's like everything that Susan tried to use as self-defense or like justification, it was discredited every time she opened her mouth. Like she would just talk. Like it was like she would be like, yeah, and like I have like this is how scared I am that I put all of these like locks in. And they're like, oh, okay, so then you even had added measure. You were actually even more protected behind that door. It's such a terrible thing to say, like when you use the word love. But I love when like people are this freaking full of themselves and confident, like that you're that stupid that you kind of made it easier to prove what a piece of garbage you are. Evil. And for somebody who liked to talk so much shit, I find it so interesting that after she went to her bedroom to retrieve this pistol, she had multiple pistols, by the way, in the garbage can in her bedroom, but she goes there. She never uses her big mouth to yell through the door that she was going to shoot. I also find it really interesting that her unit had 2 security cameras installed. So she had one attached to a sliding glass door, which was literally right beside the main metal door to get in. And then the other one was facing the parking lot. And deputies did not find any videos after about 8:40 p.m. that night of the shooting. Convenient. I don't know what kind of system she had, so I literally can't theorize what happened. I did find it really suspicious that when she was detained, like immediately when deputies arrived on the scene, she was put in the back of the police car for 2 hours with her cell phone. And the video from the patrol car showed that during that time she was using her phone, like just based on seeing that, you know, the screen was lighting up her face, but they couldn't determine what she was doing on the phone. She did tell investigators that her cameras could be accessed through an app on her phone and did give that phone to investigators. And allegedly a forensic search of the phone did find several pictures and videos taken like that evening of the shooting that showed the children playing outside, but nothing that showed any altercation. There was also no proof that she deleted anything. She denied deleting things. And again, allegedly, these forensic experts cannot prove if she did or didn't. And that is so frustrating because it's like, you know, she recorded so much and to have that recorded. And again, like when you're watching this documentary that is basically, well, the whole thing is recordings. It's puzzling and frustrating to want to know like what was picked up. And then, like I said, what's also really frustrating is that Susan was not arrested the night that she killed AJ, which understandably upset all of her loved ones. You can actually see footage from her neighbor in the days after when Susan is escorted back to go and get things from her home, and they are pissed. And I was right with them cheering on through my screen. I'm actually going to insert a clip of one of those neighbors. It is that neighbor. I saw somebody in her comments saying she is actually the perfect neighbor, like just like hardcore riding for her girl, like just beside herself, just so angry and expressing that. I think the detectives are kind of like, please like make my job easier, because she's like, what the hell is she doing? Losing her mind. And then it's like, make your life. Like she said exactly what I think everybody watching was thinking. And I'll also attach her TikTok because she's starting to share a little bit here and there and answer questions. So you can go over and send some support there.
Hey everybody. So I only have a 10-minute video. I can't do live right now. I have to wait a couple more days. For whatever reason, I don't know. Oh God, this is a lot. Anyways, let me just start off by saying thanks for all the love and the support. I really appreciate it. Alright, so I lived in an apartment subdivision called Quell Run in Ocala. And there was this lady that lived directly across the street from me, and she would just be nasty to the kids. Even when they weren't playing in her field, they could be in the road playing basketball, and she'd come out and just antagonize them. Oh, you're being too loud, and just call the police every time. Long story short, she would literally just antagonize the kids for no reason. It was one point in time where she told my daughter she was going to be raped because she was outside playing with the kids. Mind you, she was 12 years old at the time. She would call them retards, idiots. She told them that this isn't the Underground Railroad. She would wave her gun out the sliding glass window at the kids. She would take pictures of them, record them, just do all kinds of crazy stuff. All kinds of stuff. There's just so much I could tell you. But let me take you to the night that everything happened. So the kids were playing outside. I ended up calling my kids inside. You know, I was serving dinner. Next thing you know, I got this big bang on the door. So I'm serving the kids their plates. And the bang was so loud, I was just like, what the heck? So I go outside, as you can see in the video, and it's AJ's oldest son, and you saw what happened. He was frantic. Somebody shot his mom. I kind of knew, like, when he told me that, like, who it was going to be because of this lady and everything she's done. I ran outside. I get across the street. My neighbor Lauren and one of my son's friends' dads was giving AJ CPR and mouth to mouth. So, you know, at this point in time, I'm just like so lost, and I couldn't understand. I was just shocked, like really bad shocked. I've never seen nothing like this before. So as you can see, obviously in the documentary, I was freaking out. So all AJ's kids ran to my house. I put them all in my house with my kids. I fed them. It was a crazy night. It was a crazy night. The documentary was a lot for me because there were some parts that I didn't see or know about until I actually watched the documentary. Like the part where they told the kids that, you know, their mother passed. I didn't see that part in person. Like, I didn't see that until the documentary, and that was still heartbreaking for me. It's been a lot. Like, it's been a long, hard fight for everybody. You know, I don't condone my actions the way I was screaming at the police. No, I don't. I'm a lady at the end of the day, and I don't think that was cute, but I was so hurt, and you could literally see it in my voice. Like, I had been crying. I had just woke up. Like, I was so hurt from everything that happened. And not only from everything that happened, but I was so mad because they let this lady go. Like, I couldn't understand that. I just couldn't understand it. How she just got away with that. So basically, when the kids came, knocked on my door screaming, when the boy came, knocked on my door screaming, I didn't understand why it happened. And then, you know, her son was explaining to me that, that the lady threw a skate at him and swung an umbrella at him, and that, oh gosh, it's a lot. And that AJ walked over there. He went and told his mom. And she walked over there and she knocked on the door, banged on the door, whatever, like anybody would. Any mother, any real mother would have done the same thing. And she shot through the door. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, the lady's been planning this. She looked it up. They found stuff on her computer where she looked up how to get away with murder, your stand your ground laws, like how to talk to the police to get away with it, like all of that. Honestly, I don't think that I was really ready to do this, but I wasn't really ready to talk about this, but I know y'all were ready to hear something from me. Like I said, I can't really go live right now, so I can't really answer y'all's questions like I wanted to. I know y'all are asking me if the kids are okay. The kids are okay. Yes, my children still do speak to the kids. They're fine. They're doing good. Everybody's doing okay. It was just really like one of the hardest nights of my life. And I feel like the police like really just didn't, you know, I just feel like they didn't really care. You know, they didn't take initiative to none of it. If you watch the way our sheriff like talks about Susan, he like, I don't know, like if you watch how he talks about everybody else and then talks about her, like he tries not to decharacterize her. It's just so weird. But yeah, I just, you know, I wanted to give y'all a little bit of insights on stuff and the true story, because it's a lot of stuff that's being put out there that's not true. It's a lot of stuff that people are saying they did that's not true. I don't know why. I don't know what people are trying to get out of this situation, but I don't know. And also, you know, this needs to be done for a cause. Like, you know, people just need to try to raise awareness and keep AJ's story going. and not be in it for the wrong reasons, you know. But y'all feel free to ask me anything you want. Like I said, I wasn't really ready for this. I don't know, I'm like shooken up a little bit. So as soon as I can go live, I'll go live. And there's so much more, like I said, I could tell you, but I can only go on here for 10 minutes. And, you know, I'm trying to put everything together as fast as I can for you guys. But that's what I have for now. If y'all have any questions, just feel free to reach out. Thank you, and have a good day.
Now, from the investigation standpoint, it seems like from the get-go, they were not considering to let go it, but like they had in consideration the stand your ground law and needing to prove whether Susan's actions qualified or not, because it was very apparent from that initial interview that is what she was trying to do. So for several days, things were very tense. There was protests outside of the Marion County Judicial Center on June 6, 2023, with AJ's loved ones demanding that Susan was arrested and charged. There was even civil rights attorney Ben Crump who was there alongside AJ's loved ones. And behind the scenes, Marion County Sheriff's Office said that they were working with the prosecutors. They were re-interviewing everybody involved and going through the physical evidence, which, you know, it does take time. I'm also kind of like, couldn't there have been something to like have her detained longer while that was going on? Like, surely there was just so much that this woman had done over the years. I don't know. But again, I guess having that time allowed her also to talk more, because she also was re-interviewed. And like I said, every time she opened her freaking mouth, didn't do her any service, which great. But during that interview, Susan pretty much shows exactly what her intentions were. She described AJ that evening as not reasonable or prudent. And when deputies asked why she was using those words, she says she had researched self-defense information online and also researched Florida's Stand Your Ground law and saw those terms on the very day of that second police interview. So she had already was like, okay, this is what I'm looking, these are the words, like this is, we have to articulate this. If we can say these words, it's going to resonate with them. They're going to believe me. She also admitted that she had possibly researched the Stand Your Ground law in the past prior to AJ's death. As far as I understand from AJ's neighbor who would have been at trial, I'm pretty sure she was one of the witnesses, that it was proven that she had been, like the forensic search of her phone had shown that, yeah, she was looking things up. And for the detectives, this showed that Susan was literally already preparing this self-defense narrative, not only after the fact, but then also familiarizing herself with it before she shot AJ. It took 5 days, but on June 7th, 2023, authorities felt that they had enough evidence to make an arrest, and Susan Lawrence was arrested and charged with, people are going to be upset here. I'm re-upset. I can hardly even say it. She was charged with manslaughter with a firearm. Sheriff Billy Woods had held a press conference to announce the arrest. And even though he says, you know, like this situation is a prime example of when the Stand Your Ground law was not justified, he said this was simply a killing. So even though he acknowledges that, it was a manslaughter charge. That was really disheartening and upsetting to learn. AJ's loved ones believed her death should have been a murder charge. And I absolutely agree. Again, looking at it with a legal side of things, the state attorney, Bill Gladson, he had made a statement and he said that his office was pursuing manslaughter instead of second-degree murder because they felt that they could not meet the burden of proof required for a murder charge. And the only thing that I can think of is coming from an attorney standpoint, weighing the risk of a possible acquittal. Like if you have a juror there that is just not gonna see it, like it's gonna believe, you know, like even though she talks in circles, and you'd hope that a prosecutor would be skilled enough at their job to be able to like poke holes and all of that, you do run that risk that with that charge, it carries like so much more proof. We also know, you know, like she had been banking on this defense of that she was feeling fearful, right? So it's hard to also prove her feelings, whether they're like true or not. That's the only thing that I could think about. Nonetheless, I absolutely understand like the disappointment in that decision, because like for us, literally seeing it play out in front of our eyes. Now it seems so obvious. Even though you'd think like, wow, I wasn't charged with murder when I should be. Actually, no, like, cause Susan's just a freaking bad case. But yeah, she was still shooting for the stars. She pled not guilty and went to trial in August 2024, which again is so frustrating because it's like, you weren't even charged with murder. You shot a mother in front of her son. The trauma of that. And then now everyone's got to go to trial because of you, Susan. As expected, her side of the story was she was still sticking to the self-defense. She said she was frightened, thought that this, her neighbor was so angry she was going to burst through the door and harm her. She also claimed to have post-traumatic stress from earlier life experiences from abuse, which made her fearful. And I've said it before and I will say it again, babe, like, don't we all get therapy? Your trauma is not society's problem. Is it terrible that bad things can happen to people at all stages of their life? Absolutely. That shouldn't happen. But if you're this affected, still, and have become evil because of evil, that's not okay. You not only owe it to society, but yourself to get help. Like, you don't need to be evil because somebody else was evil to you. We got to stop. Now, the prosecution actually brought in the door, which I loved, because here's Susan saying that she felt threatened, yet now the jury was able to see that there was no physical threat. They could see that there was no damage to the door. The only damage to the door was the single bullet hole that she shot through it, but there's no splintering on the frame or, damage, like indicating that like at any point AJ was like trying to like force her way or like, pound it in. There was no denting or anything like that. So it kind of goes back to like, being frustrated actually again about the manslaughter charge, because it's like we're seeing this was what was protecting her. It's proving that Susan was like in no imminent physical danger when she shot AJ through the door. And I think one of the most telling things about Susan's actual character, I don't know if this was brought up in trial. I mean, I know that there was a lot of the neighbors who were witnesses to just like say that this woman had terrorized them and their children for over 2 years, and that she was always the aggressor, never the victim, like she was now trying to portray herself as. But we at least see it in the documentary where as she's being detained and AJ is still on the ground having life-saving measures performed on her to try to save her life. Keep in mind also, like with her children around, the only thing that Susan said was that she wanted to make sure the officers didn't let her cats out of the house. Zero concern for AJ, who was dying on her lawn. That sounds like just like so harsh, but it's like, that's the reality. You killed her. And she's like, can you make sure my cats don't get out? They would probably be better without you, babe. Ultimately, on August 16th, 2024, after a week-long trial, the jury deliberated for just 2 hours and returned with a guilty verdict for manslaughter with a firearm. And she was sentenced on November 27th. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison, which means she will be in her early 80s by the time she is released. And to me personally, that is not enough, because I feel like, people like that, like they're just like, for some reason, all the good ones get taken young. And then it's like, you got Susan, probably the 80-year-old cockroach who's just she's probably wreaking havoc right in that prison right now, which, I mean, I guess depending on like, what kind of company she's got in there, but oh my gosh, it just, in the documentary, you'll have to let me know if you guys thought about this too. When she returns back and AJ's neighbor is, beside herself, rightfully so, like just so upset and angry. She was with people. And I always thought it was like, who in the world, who is hanging with this woman? Who in the world? I'd be curious to, I wish I would have looked into like if there was like footage of the actual trial for like her character witnesses, because usually they'll try to do that. Because I'm like willing to bet money, like no one was sitting behind her or the character witness. It's that bad. I probably sound like just so harsh and mean, but it's like, no, you're harsh and mean. Like, this is like utterly evil, like so evil. In the documentary, you do see footage of her reaction to the judge's sentencing, and basically like he also lays out the reasons why he believed like she was full of shit and not in danger. He's like, the door was locked, you had already called law enforcement knowing damn well they were on their way, you had multiple safety measures like protecting you. This was in no way self-defense. Like, you murdered her. And her reaction, again, just Susan showing exactly who Susan is. She's just like that, like rolled her eyes. I can't, oh my gosh. Ugh. I can't even imagine. This case is one of those where it's just like when you really like sit back and take it in, the senselessness of the whole thing is just so devastating. And as much as Susan wants to deny that she's not this evil racist, which she said things like, quote, I never had a problem with a Black person in my life. This is not about race. And then followed up with that she even sung with Black musicians as a jazz and blues singer in her past. Like, okay, Susan, no, like your actions, your repeated actions and words, the racist things you said. How can you say this has nothing to do with race when the things that you said to children, these were your words. Your words and actions prove exactly what you are, which is an evil racist. I wish I could just take that door. Well, just based on all accounts from AJ's family and loved ones, the children are doing as best as they can. That's just, oh my gosh, where my heart goes. I think also like once you see something like that and like those moments in real time and how like raw that is, it's something you'll just never forget. And her loved ones are doing the best that they can to also allow AJ's legacy to live on. And I know a lot of people want to know like how they can help and support the family, especially her children. And so her mom, Pamela, and her close friend, Kima, launched a foundation called Standing in the Gap to support other families affected by racial violence. They also have a GoFundMe as well. And they said that the support for the kids on there was overwhelming. And so that they're now using, I think, like additional donations to also help others. And they also announced that they have plans to have a mural in Ocala to honor AJ's memory and just remind the community of the need for unity and understanding and to not tolerate any ounce of Susan in somebody. Let's say that. Okay, I will have all of that, all, you know, like ways that you can connect and support linked for you in the description. And I want to leave you with a quote from AJ's mother that, again, oh my gosh, like sobbing, like soaking wet shirt, sobbing reading this. But this is what she said about her daughter. She said, Ajike had a heart of gold. You may look at her and say she didn't have much. She had it all. She had love. She had compassion. She had 4 beautiful children. Yeah. All right, that's it for me today, you guys. If you haven't watched The Perfect Neighbor, please do so. Another thing that I wanted to mention was it was directed by Gita Ganbir. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing. She's actually a family friend of the Owenses, like AJ's family. And it was co-produced by Tamika Robinson, whose sister was AJ's best friend. So I love this when families get involved and are able to participate in telling their stories. The way, I can't say enough of it. Not only does like the way that this was done allow you to see how evil Susan is and what this neighborhood went through, but it also shows AJ and even her kids, like, you know, like that is such a reflection too of like kids that age and their level of respect and even tolerance and understanding for every time that these, which they should, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, of course, like you want the kids to be respectful, but when it comes to like issues of racism, to have to be like tolerant and to see repeatedly that this woman was getting away, that's frustrating actually. But they were just so well behaved, so understanding, so stoic. It's obviously a reflection of their upbringing. And there is a clip in one of the opening scenes of AJ, and you can see how calm and respectful she is. And again, like it's like you're taken along this whole journey, which it makes it harder, but it's what's needed. It'll be interesting to see like how many other documentaries kind of like follow this structure, because yeah, it just allows everybody to see like who they are like through their own actions. And I think that is incredibly powerful because it eliminates the speculation. It just like right there just like squashes any form of, you know, I guess defense of like what even we would already know, like what Susan would try to say, right? Of being like, oh, misunderstood. It was this. It's like, no. We got to see for ourselves. We got to see exactly who you were by you showing us exactly who you are. It's not so much talk, even though you liked to do that up until the moment that you shot and killed a mother. But yeah, we got to see for ourselves. So there was no questions. There was no like, okay, what am I missing? There was nothing missing. We got to see it all. So well done. Please go and watch it. And like I said, I'll have everything linked below. That is it for me today, though, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is such a heavy one, but it's so important. I needed to talk about it. And yeah, I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts if you've seen it and what you guys thought too. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.